Welcome everyone to a casted game for Age of Empires 4, and today spawning on the west side of the map playing in red we've got, well, it's D's nuts, but it's also of course Beastyqt playing as the Byzantines, and battling against them today spawning on the east side of the map playing in blue, playing as the Malians, it's Vortix. Welcome everyone to Dry Arabia. As always, hope you're all having a fantastic morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And we're back in with Beasty playing the Byzantines, Vortix with the Malians, two incredibly gifted players in Age of Empires 4, playing two very interesting civilizations, mostly because actually the Malians are in a strong spot at the moment. It's a situation where actually, as civilizations go, they have a lot of capabilities of just staying at home, going for cow booms, getting passive gold generation. It often is the enemy's I guess the enemy needs to put pressure on, and I imagine that's what Beasty will be doing with the Byzantines today. The question is, will he be able to put enough pressure? Because the thing about going up against the Malians, it's hard to punish them at times. Their economy is very, very safe with food, with the cow boom, and they've got passive gold generation, so it's a really tricky situation. Granted, there are some civilizations, the Byzantines included, that do have a very strong feudal age, but also transition quite nicely to a castle age without too much trouble. Of course, I'd probably make some arguments to say that maybe the HRE are a little bit ahead in that regard, maybe the Delhi, but the Byzantines certainly aren't bad with their mercenaries. Of course, they've also got a bit of a boost with the cistern, not as much as other civilizations have at this early, for example, the HRE, but they do at least get a 10% extra gather rate for the villagers nice and early with the cistern there. So as always, hope you're all having a fantastic time and enjoying the Age of Empires content on the channel. And if you are, I would like to say a very big thank you also. But if you haven't already, make sure that you are subscribed. And also you've hit the notification bell because we're having plenty more Age of Empires forecasted content. And if you watched a couple now and you don't want to miss the next one, it's probably something worth doing. Now, great thing for Beasty, he's got berries at the back, nice and safe. And actually, this is a very relevant thing because I feel like, you know, the ramifications of having berries in a forward position for the Byzantines is a big one, right? Because, sure, like, in the initial stages, having the berries in the forward position is not the end of the world. You can usually get the majority of the berries before you put under pressure, or at least you can defend it well. But the biggest problem about having the forward berries is that you typically place your Grand Winery next to your berries, right? That's just obviously a gather point for them. The problem comes in when you start to get the olive groves. And so the problem is really, you don't want your olive groves in a forward position, because later on in the game, it puts that at risk of being raided, attacked, and your food economy, and also the olive oil economy, really, really struggles. So this is a really good start here for Byzantines. I say start, it's not like he's done something about it. It is, of course, the random generation of the map for Beasty. But it puts him in a good spot. Speaking of good spots, the gold is in a good spot here for Vortix, right at the back. So we're pretty feeling safe and secure, which of course is something that Beasty will like to try and stop. He's going to want to put pressure on nice and early. What I am kind of curious is that we are kind of in a pro scouts meta at the moment. Loads of civilizations are going pro scouts. Kind of curious to see if either of these players do so with the civilizations they've got. The reason why is because actually, I mean, you can make an argument to say, well, do either of these players need to go for the deer camp? I'm not so sure, right? Because you've got a really good transition to food for both of these civilizations. You know, there are some civilizations that are very heavily dependent on the deer camp, namely the Jeanne d'Arc faction and also the French civilization. But, well, I mean, the Malians, they can get food from the cattle ranches, right? And the cattle that they almost inevitably are going to make. So the real question is, how quickly do they want to make that transition? Do they want to do it right off the bat, get cattle out nice and early, so it sets you up for the mid to late game? Or do you want to just get that injection of food nice and quickly to maybe get some units, get to the castle edge even quicker? That's the big question we've got on our hands today. Now, the Byzantines, probably arguably the weakest kind of pro scouts play civilization. They just don't seem to do well with it, but they could do with a bit of food. But of course, olive grove transition for them is quite nice and early, because then you have got mercenaries that can come out for you, and mercenaries is really where it's about for the Byzantines. Of course, you can pay for your units with your regular resources, but spending the olive oil is very important too. You can really get a lovely army together and also have a good amount of resources in the bank to get to the castle age with the Byzantines, as long as you're prioritizing getting those mercenaries. in terms of food for them, of course, the olive groves double up as getting the olive oil for the mercenaries as well as the food. So there's certainly two civilizations that don't necessarily particularly dislike an early transition to farms, or in the case of the Malians, to the cows. Opens up with a stable, both players that is, and going for barracks as well. Looks like he is getting a couple of scouts here actually, Vortix. So yeah, the professional scouts has been queued up. And when you see that, I guess Beasty might be thinking, well, maybe he needs to go professional scouts himself, right, to counteract it. Sometimes it's not so much just about whether you actually want to go pro scouts yourself. Sometimes it's about if you want to deny the pro scouts for your enemy, because he doesn't want to let, Vortix get all this free food off the map. Granted, he definitely doesn't want to get, this deer camp being taken as well, because you could imagine Vortix gets 4 deer camps. It could be really, really powerful. Delays the cattle ranch transition, gives them a lot of free resources on the map. Of course, with a bit of mobility with the horsemen, Beasty did open up with a stable, and also a mercenary house going for the Western mercenary contract to get the longbows, going for that classic combination of horsemen and longbows. Vortix just going to look to wall this up, could be a bit precarious. There are 2 horsemen. Yeah, it's going to move back now. And there's the first scout, which Beasty does spot, so he's going to have to drop that carcass. Oh, maybe not actually. Surprisingly little damage done. I mean, these are warrior scouts after all. Look at the health regeneration on this. Absolutely phenomenal. And in a way, I guess, actually, when you talk about cattle ranches nice and early as a transition, maybe making that as an argument to not necessarily need pro scouts. To be fair, with the Malians, going for scouts is really nice, right? The warrior scouts actually can be really relevant into the mid game. Like, they got so much HP, they regenerate really nicely. They can act as a really nice front line at times. So actually, I think, getting the deer camp, it's different, right? If you don't have warrior scouts, just regular scouts, they become a lot less relevant after the pro scouts shenanigans is over. But actually, these units are still very useful, even after their deer camp have all been collected. Interesting to think about for sure. With Beasty continuing to produce from both the stable and the mercenary house. Wheelbarrow coming in for Vortix. Already got those blacksmith eco upgrades here for Beasty. Wheelbarrow, horticulture, double broadaxe, you name it, is getting it. It's also getting the blacksmith. I suspect he's going to get some really good military upgrades too. Venturing out onto the berries, getting the extra olive oil that way, means more mercenaries. Speaking of mercenaries, already got 5 longbows on the field. Another batch just popped out now, so 10 in total. You can see, it really escalates the army count. It's very nice to have as the Byzantines. The good thing for Beasty actually in this scenario is that because he's got so many units and Vortix is aware of it, Vortix can't just go for a greedy castle age, right? Otherwise he'll be punished and might even die. So Vortix has to commit to units. But I gotta say, with the fact that he's got pro scouts, it's not necessarily a terrible deal, right? Because he's got so much food underneath the town centre completely free. So he won't necessarily mind making these units. It's a different story, right? If you're going for just sort of cattle ranches and then to get to the castle age, but to afford the castle age and units at the same time, it's a costly business. Not so much when you've got a bunch of deer under your TC. Try to go out to get the mining camp there. Well, he does have a couple of soffer now, so probably will be able to get that up in the end. Village not going back out to build it though. Maybe he might turn around. Yeah, he's turning around now, at least according to the minimap. Beasty putting a bit of pressure here. I wonder whether now, the walls are up, right? It doesn't really feel like Beasty's going to get too much more damage. I suspect he's going to be thinking about the castle age. He's relatively walled up at home. He's got mercenaries to make more units to defend with if he is being pushed back by the Malians. So he might think about castle age. He's definitely stockpiling some food and gold. And this is where it becomes interesting, right? Mentality-wise, Vortix has to make a decision. At what point does he stop making units? And does he decide to go to the castle age? Beasty kind of pulling the strings here. It looks like he's going to be going to the castle age first. Vortix might not necessarily know about that. And so Beasty certainly is going to be looking to get to that castle age first. And the big ramifications for that are the relics. Of course, the Byzantines have the Grand Winery. They can make the monks from that as soon as they get to the castle age. And try and pick up as many of those relics as possible. Yeah, there's constant pressure and harassment. Just forces Vortix to stay at home. He's causing idle time. Beasty's just trying to get as much value as he possibly can. Delay the Malians as much as he possibly can. So he can get to the castle age with a bigger lag time compared to his enemy getting there as well. Oh, Donsos though, that's dangerous to go up against. The Donsos being able to throw their spears is a big deal. You know, spearmen will always be chasing. The Donsos will be chasing as well, but they can get a couple of shots off and do some damage, and that's exactly what happened there. Didn't kill the horseman, but, you know, took a bit of HP off at least. The outpost is up as well to defend the gold, because it's one thing getting to the castle age, it's another thing being able to actually support your military production and actually make those castle age units, which are often very gold heavy. Could we think about counterfacts potentially? I mean, with this number of Donsos, probably not, actually, as it happens. You might be thinking about some of those Varangian guards. Could be a way to deal with these Donsos that Vortix has at the moment. The nice thing, actually, is, well, that he does have a lot of longbowmen. A natural counter. So you can see right from the beginning, you know, the Malians are a bit more of a passive civilization in a way. The Byzantines have been pulling the strings. He went for horsemen, forced Vortix into Donsos. He got longbows as the contract. And now he's going to the castle age. Actually, both building at the same time. It might be, actually, I think Vortix is going to get there a little bit quicker. The economy just really kicked in. It's the food, it's the deer. Holy smokes, getting double the food per minute. That is the power of the deer camp. The food comes in just so fast. With the Golden Horn Tower, bear in mind as well, like, we talk about food coming in fast. Here's the cattle ranches popping up, and the Grand Fulani Coral, it increases the food per cattle per minute. It's pretty good. It's a really big power spike, and whilst it's been relatively quiet in this match so far, don't let it fool you. It's probably the quiet before the storm, at least that's what I like to call it. In Age of Empires 4, often you have these situations where both players are building up the economy, they're ramping up, getting to the ages. Eventually, it will escalate to a big fight, which, well, not happening just yet. Vortix has to back away with these Sofa. Can't get too much value. But Beasty hasn't lost all this deer camp at least. Still a good amount of food underneath the town centre, and he's making that really smooth transition over to the cattle. As Beasty now gets to the castle age, we kind of... Ooh, a couple of cavalry got lost there for Beasty, unfortunately for him. That's a big deal, actually. Losing those units is very painful. What if we see a mosque just yet here for the Malians? Kind of expected to do so, but yeah, Monk will be popping out for the Byzantines before too long. I love this play though, the Sofa just guarding the relics, making sure that he's going to find it difficult to move on out, and he's still being able to bring in deer camp. An absolutely phenomenal amount of food coming on in. Oh, he's made a smash and grab of it. He's grabbed so many of the deer here. Vortix, it's going to have food forever. I mean, at this point, you have to wonder actually, how relevant are the deer, because he's actually getting a decent number of cattle. I mean, to be fair, he's not fully transitioned to cattle, so every little bit helps at the moment. Longbows are chasing, but Vortix is kind of trapped here actually as it happens, forcing two villages into some idle time, but nothing major, and he's walled in. He's not going to be able to break out. These longbows might do some significant damage. Granted, Vortix with this force is forcing Beasty to stay at home, which is probably... I mean, then it comes to the question actually, who thrives in the mid to late game? It's a tricky one. I think Vortix and the Malians, it's difficult to finish them off because of the safety of the cattle. But the Byzantines, as a late game civilization, they're really strong. And especially in the hyper late game, because they can get olive oil to get siege engines, which is great to do some structural damage. The Malians, on the other hand, they do have passive gold generation actually, so that's pretty solid. Probably likely to lose one more Sofa. Oh, no, the longbow's actually focused on a different Sofa, not the weak one. So you might be able to get away with a couple of these, but with the walls now on this side, I mean, he's pretty much trapped, right? Now, in terms of relics, 2 have been grabbed up for Beasty. Not yet deposited, 1 for the Malians, but he's getting even more food with this. Oh, the monk spotted it in the end for Beasty. He spots the scouts, but he can't really do too much about it, because his army is just not very mobile, right? He has gone for the Varangian guards in the end in the castle age. Kind of expected to counter the Donsos. Got triple barracks to do so with as well. Holy moly. That is going to be a lot of Varangian guards. And the question then you have to ask, what do the Malians have against that? I mean, they don't have crossbows. They would have to go for the Musafadi warriors, which means a lot of infantry. And you can imagine where that goes from here, right? It's a typical rock, paper, scissors sort of situation. Although in this scenario, we'll go for siege, right? Going for Donsos and Musafadi warriors leaves you incredibly prone to mangonels. And mangonels are in a really good spot at the moment in this patch, because you can't get springles. Springles no longer counter them. Oh, will he get the horseman? He doesn't just about. Yeah, so without Springalds, Vortix might struggle actually in the matchup and the way it's panning out. And it's all down to the fact that the Byzantines have been calling the shots, right? So Donsos and Mustafadi warriors versus the Varangian guards and longbows. It's going to be tough for the Malians, because all it then needs is a couple of mangonels from Beasty. They'll be doing all sorts of damage. I do like the Sopher input actually as it happens, because there aren't that many Limitana here for Beasty. So the Sopher can kind of tank against the Varangian guards, do some damage against the longbows. So I think the Sopher, the cavalry, is probably what Vortix will want to do. Of course, as well, the cavalry will be great at sniping siege. That's pretty much all you can do against siege these days. So he's got to be thinking about getting more Sopher and more cavalry, I think. It's probably the way forward. Is he going to dive this? I don't know about this. There's quite a few... Oh, I say about going for cavalry, but look how many Limitana they are now. It's actually a solid number. He's going to have to focus fire them with his archers that don't yet have poisoned arrows. The Donzo's tanking as well against the Varangian guards. Sopher trying to get on the longbows at the back, but their numbers have really thinned down because of the Limitane, right? And a couple of Varangian guards trying to fend them off. He's going to pick off a decent number of the longbows as it happens, actually. It's not a terrible fight here for Vortix, and I think it might win it, although there's still a decent number of Varangian guards here, so I think it probably could be okay. Beasty, he can't really run away from this fight because of the Sopher and the mobility that they have, so what he's going to do behind all of this is actually going to get the Sacred Sites. He's picked up 3 of the 5 relics, which is a fantastic number, all things considered, considering he was second to get to the Castle Age. And he takes a trade. Obviously, the defender's advantage will overcome this, but he's picked up 2 Sacred Sites, 3 relics, and that is what Beasty does so well. He's just taken advantage of having the position on the map, and he continues to send his forces forward. Now, Limitane as well can do the drop shields ability, so the ranged attacks that come in from the archers do significantly less damage. In fact, 30% I believe, specifically, yeah, 30% reduced damage. I think we just need to see siege engines, right? Siege workshop here from Beasty, and this game will be really tricky for Vortix. We don't see a siege workshop just yet. Doesn't really have the wood for it here, actually. He's focused, of course, a lot on food and gold, which is as you'd expect in the Castle Age. You want to make those heavily armored units in the form of the Varangian guards. That's exactly what Beasty's been doing, but I suspect a transition onto wood could be quite timely here for Beasty to get some mangonels, do some significant damage to these javelin throws that are now popping out for Vortix. He's made a bit of a transition. I don't know how I feel about javelin throws. Sure, they'll do get good against the longbows. I mean, they'll do well against the Limitane as well, so maybe it's a good choice. I think maybe javelin throws and Mustafadi warriors could be the option, but then again, that just leaves you prone to mangonel plays from Beasty. Now back at home, cattle has pretty much been completed, the cattle transition. So his food is absolutely bonkers, right? Look at Vortix's food per minute. 1,000 food per minute. It is absolutely insane. Granted, he's getting a little bit less gold. He's getting more wood though, so overall it feels like the economy for Vortix is I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily better, but it's in a really good spot. The reason why I wouldn't necessarily say it's better is because, you know, Beasty has 3 relics, he's got 3 sacred sites, not to mention he's got a really solid olive grove transition, which gives him the olive oil, which can make many, many mercenaries. So you have to kind of balance those things in the scales. As Vortix is looking to neutralize the sacred site, the win condition has been activated, but probably not really on the cards as such. And one Sopher might put a spanner in those works. For the sacred site victory, yeah, it surely will be decapped, right? Both players starting to get some blacksmith upgrades, melee ones in particular. And let's take a look at Beasty's base. I wonder if he's got siege workshop just yet. He doesn't really have the wood for it, I guess. Yeah, he's focusing really heavily on food and gold. Understandably so. He wants the unit numbers. Currently at 113 population, so be quite content on just continuously pumping out units. One thing I've got to be concerned about for Vortix, his production is all in one spot, right? So that leaves him very exposed to sort of, you know, if a push comes in there and he loses those production buildings, it's going to be a tough time, right? You'd have to make it at the back and he doesn't have much wood, so it's tricky. What I would say in terms of stone, Beasty's collected more than enough for a keep. Maybe he's thinking about getting a keep in the middle, because we are at the sort of 20-minute mark in the game. That's where players do need to think about their long-term source of gold, which of course is in the middle of the map. Oh, he's trying to go for a keep. And that would be very, very optimistic. I don't think that's going to work there, actually. He's going to have to back away and delete that. place it a bit more conservatively, I imagine, or they might fight for it. I think it'd be a risky one, right? It doesn't feel like it's a situation he needs to like commit to. He's going to fight a little bit, maybe take a bit of HP off the sofa. He's doing just that. Javelin throws, you know, they're all focused on one longbow. So sure, he killed that one longbow, but it took up all the damage output from the javelin throws. He's committing with the villagers. Sofa gonna try and get round onto the longbows. Maybe the Sofa go for the villagers instead because he spots them, but there are a decent number of Limitane. Those Limitane are being very stubborn. Yeah, that's not a fight Beasty can win, and so he rightly pulls those villagers away. Definitely the sensible option, because Vortix is trickling in units as the defender's advantage. Well, actually, to be fair, it's closer to Beasty's base, but he's got cavalry on the field, right? So they get to the fight a little bit quicker. But for now, actually, just the sheer number of Limitane, he's starting to win that fight, and he will be able to get the, well, it's not a keep actually, it's a town centre. Building that economy once again, and Vortix has to trail off. I think Beasty will be very happy with that fight he just took. It was a solid one, no doubt about it. He does still have enough stone for a keep, so he might be thinking about it now that he's got a bit of an upper hand on unit numbers. But this force from Beasty is not necessarily going to be just sweeping this up, because Vortix does still have a sizable army here. Cavalry probably won't last too long for them, considering the number of Limitane. Although the number of Limitane are starting to dwindle. But it's essentially longbows versus javelin throws, so Vortix should win this. Although, to be fair, he's probably got more archers than he has javelin throws here, Vortix. Bringing guards, soaking up a lot of the pressure. Monk coming in for the heals as well. Sofa, the last of them in this fight, goes down. And eventually, looks like actually Beasty will be getting that keep up. He's going to commit to it. Feels strong to do so, and he's moving out with his longbows. But, no surprises actually, he's in a good spot there. Gold-wise, it looks like Vortix is running out the gold at home, actually. Where is he going for gold? There it is, actually. It's the one in the forward position. So where things become a bit scary, right? Beasty's starting to get control of the middle of the map. Might start to get some siege engines and push on in, do some structural damage. Although, again, not quite enough wood coming on in. We've got a bit of wood tied up in these olive groves that were never built. We are starting to escalate in the population count ever so slightly. Wonder if anyone's thinking about Imperial Age. Probably a bit too early, considering the aggressiveness of these players. I suspect they're just going to shore up the map a little bit more potentially here. Keep pretty much up and running. Just about to get there. There we go. Gonna go for an outpost as well for the extra vision. Not a bad idea at all. So the Sofa going to try and burn through the palisades, but what that does is it splits off the army, right? So Beasty, he's got one of two options. He either chases this down, or he actually just ignores it and trusts in his defensive capabilities and moves out with the force in the middle. And that would be a nice move, because of course Vortix wouldn't have his whole army together. Instead, Vortix deciding not to put any pressure and backing off for now. We'll lose a couple of HP on these units, and pretty extensive walls coming out for Beasty. He does have border settlements, so he's going to have an incredible line of sight with these houses, giving him all the vision, all the information that he'll need. He's adding a couple of Landsconnector there. That could be a lot of damage, actually, if he gets close to the infantry units. Bear in mind, actually, I wonder if he's... I felt like I saw some rocks there. Oh, I think he's got manganese placement. No, he doesn't. But yeah, that could have been an option. He's got the manganese placement in the keep, I think. So Vortix just building up the force to fight with. Whether it's going to be enough or not remains to be seen. Sofa. Safari warriors, archers, javelin throwers, a little bit of everything. Up against mostly longbows and bringing guards. To be fair, he's got Landsconnector and crossbows too, so yeah, a bit of a mixed bag for everyone. Go for a trebuchet. Vortix going to try and take down that keep. And longbows do have to back away. Javelin throwers getting some good value in the north. The horsemen just being a bit pesky and annoying. Oh, there's the mangonels. Yep, here it comes. Here it comes, and this could be very dangerous, because the trouble is now, without springles, you don't have a ranged counter to the mangonels. You have to rely on your horsemen. But if your horsemen are going to break through, I mean, how do they when they just got to keep units around your mangonel, and it's hard for the horsemen to reach the mangonel, right? And for as long as that happens, the mangonel's getting shots off at your infantry. It's a really bad situation, I guess, here for Vortix. I think mangonels in this scenario, I think something needs to be added. There's got to be a better way to counter mangonels than just horsemen, because it's hard to it's easy to stop, really. Just plunk units in front of your mangonel and you're good to go. Of course, you have to have a sizable army, but Beasty's got himself that way, because he's earned that position. He's going to get greased axles, just to increase the movement speed ever so, well, I'd say ever so slightly, but 15% to be more precise. Beasty is, you know, almost getting to that population capacity, so he's going to be building up a bank of resources that could be pumped into an Imperial Age, or just a replacement of the army he might be losing soon if he does take a fight. I say, you know, as if he's not necessarily going to lose the fight, but he's certain to lose units. But if the Lance Connection can get involved, this could be huge. I mean, I don't know, it just feels like Beasty has a lot more here, right? The Horsemen can't get around to the mangonels. It means the mangonels get some huge shots on the javelin throws, and that's going to really deplete their HP and get a significant amount of them down. You see the greased axles will be useful for the mangonels if they do have to retreat. Front line starting to dwindle, but he's taking out even more javelin throws with the mangonel shots. Absolutely huge. And the horsemen now aren't in good numbers. They probably can't take down the mangonels. There's not enough of them. Longbows firing as much as they can. He does have the mangonel placement inside the keep that's doing all sorts of damage as well. So looking a bit dicey now. There are 3 trebuchets. They're slowly looking to take down the keep. No repairs coming out for Beasty. But again, mangonels, huge shots on the poisoned archers. I don't know if they've got poison upgrade actually, to be fair, but either way, ranged units, archers. And the mangonels still remaining alive. Look at that. Holy moly. He's losing so many of these units. Vortix does now to back off, and you just see how much damage these 2 mangonels have done. Limitana coming at the perfect time to stop the horsemen from sniping the mangonels. And whilst the keeper's gone down, well, trebuchets are going to be paid for it. So, yeah, he's doing all sorts of damage. There it is. Then GG gets called. And Vortix, he taps out. He just took some bad fights. It all came down to the mangonels, but it was a great game of Age of Empires 4. So much strategy to talk about and unpack. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a pleasure. And if you did enjoy it, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.